This is the 40U Tech Startups podcast. The podcast in which you hear all about the startups and spin-offs from the 4 technical universities in the Netherlands. From the challenges they face to the ecosystems they accelerate in, here we talk about what it takes to flourish and make impact on an international playing field. Brought to you by the 40U.
Hello and welcome to the 40U podcast. My name is Cindy Marsman and today we're diving into a topic that's close to our hearts here at 40U, startups, innovation and the power of collaboration. Today we record this podcast at Applied Materials here in the VS. It's a large semiconductor company and this visit to Applied Materials is a part of a US mission. Last week we were already at CES with a group of startups and this week we are here at the Bay Area visiting several companies and among them also Applied Materials. In this podcast today we will explore the similarities and differences between the Dutch and US startup ecosystems, and I brought 2 guests to talk to me about this. First, Mike Verkouter. You're the mission leader of this 40U mission. And you work at the University of Twente. Do you want to give yourself a short introduction?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and nice to talk about these kind of things because we're here in the US indeed, and now already for 2 weeks. So I see a lot of differences, but also enough to talk about.
Thank you for joining. And we have Marcel Verheijen, a co-founder of Amplify, a company dedicated to empowering startups and building connections between academia and the business world. Marcel, would you like to add something to this introduction?
Well, likewise, thanks for having me and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you for joining. And let's just immediately dive into my first question. Let's start with the big picture. From your experience, what are the key differences and similarities between Dutch and US startup ecosystems? Marcel, let's start with you.
2 major things in the US is what's in it for me, and I probably will repeat myself a couple of times in this podcast about it, because it's one of the things that drives the cultural thing as well here. And the other thing is they always like to have your IP, your intellectual property, secured, and that's also linked to investment. So basically it is the IP should be secured, and universities in the US think differently on acquiring the IP than the universities in Europe and in the Netherlands.
Okay, and Mike, how is that for you? How do you look at it?
I will not repeat what Marcel says because I can agree with that, but I think it's also a huge difference in how to do these kind of things here. I think in the Netherlands, for instance, we talk a lot about work-life balance, how you get done also along building up your business, etc. And I wouldn't say per se what is good or what is wrong, but there's at least a huge difference also here in the States, where the holiday days are a bit less. Even if they offer you unlimited holiday days, it doesn't mean that they also probably expect you to take all these days. So there is a culture here that people understand that really to create a success, to create that impact, you really need to put in all the effort, and probably that will cost you also something.
I want to add to that a lot of businesses here have a little bit of a trouble with the long vacations in Europe. The summer, the split week vacations, and around Christmas, people are not available, and it frustrates them. We hear it in a lot of cases where they say, "Oh, well, we have to wait till January," or somebody like in France and Italy, there August is a non-go. It's like comes too old.
Okay, and if you look at more, Marcel, you already dived into the IP differences between the Dutch and the US ecosystem. Mike, what would you think about, how do you see the differences between the Dutch and the VS ecosystem according to this IP topic?
Yeah, there are all kind of approaches and all kind of layers in of course also this question, but more than the approach. So the same as in the Netherlands, even with the fact that we as 40 also initiated the deal terms that make it more transparent, more simple to set up a company structure and the shares in that. In the States, of course, it's also different per university, per situation. I think the next layer is also that I would say there's a lot of capital available also here in the States that helps sometimes also with the speed of setting up things. So because you know anyway that there's money coming in, so eventually it speeds up the whole thing. So I think that sometimes it's also the comparison. So yesterday we had a nice visit here in the States to to Stanford University, and I think a lot of people see, of course, all the ventures that come from Stanford University. Sometimes there's the discussion that they take little shares compared to the Netherlands, but again, there are layers there. They intend not to dilute that fast as some of our 4 technical universities do. So eventually, it's all different.
Marcel, a question for you. What's the difference in getting the IP better financed?
Here in the US, it's more that there's a private-public cooperation for benefits of companies. Sometimes you got bigger companies who fund the IP, so they fund a scale-up for the research, or a university for the research. While in Europe, it's more all kind of governmental bodies, and there are a lot, and maybe Mike can elaborate on which one, how it works, who fund the research and innovation. And here the innovation is more driven from what's in it for me. That's again, the private companies fund the research and innovation, and then get a piece of the pie, read a piece of the IP.
Yeah, and to add on that also, also what we just discussed, like what is the difference? I think what we sometimes forget, at least what I see from the Dutch perspective, maybe to compare, but you can add to that, is we're talking about ecosystems, and if you compare it to like the funnel that you build in the Netherlands now we're talking about IP, but in the Netherlands now we have the discussion always also around politics. We need more scale-ups. But that's a part of the funnel. What people forget is that if you get pieces out of that funnel, or you extract that, the funnel is gone. So you need proper research. You need to start with education, but from that you get proper research. But research leads to potential intellectual property. Intellectual property is not per se a venture, because maybe there's no business model around it. But eventually that leads to a proper business model, to a venture. For that, you need a team, you need investors. To get a scale up, you need much more. And sometimes we always talk about a piece of the puzzle, and we then find a piece of the puzzle more important than some other pieces. But to create a proper ecosystem, we need to begin from the beginning till the end. So that's why I also concerned what's happening in the Netherlands, that we put less money into our research in our education, because eventually it's nice that we say, oh yeah, but we add a bit more to the scale-ups because we really think it's important to have more scale-ups. Yeah. And then on the short term, it's a nice piece of the puzzle, but on the long run, we cannot complete the whole puzzle. And I think I wouldn't say that in the US the puzzle is ready, but at least it's more complete than we have in the Netherlands.
I believe that one of the important parts in that's the tax legislation. The Dutch tax legislation is not really investing friendly regards startups. Here it's more common to invest as angel investors or in startups. So as you said, the puzzle, it starts really at the beginning, and as you said, if you take a piece out, which there might be more people be interested in financing research in the Netherlands if they know that there is a tax deductible part of it. And here it's a lot of things there, the grants and tax deductibles. So it makes it easy, I almost want to say risiko less, to start working on the IP. And basically, when we're talking about the ecosystem, that's the major difference between the ecosystems. Starts at where's the money coming from, and follow the money, why. So technically, I believe that, although I cannot talk for the Dutch government, but they should really put more effort in making tax legislation startup friendly, because in the end of the day, you want to create tax revenue, and you can only create tax revenue if you got startups who become scale-ups, who become bigger companies, and you get corporate taxes and income taxes and everything. But if you start already by saying, no, it's not deductible, the risk value is too big for investors in the Netherlands to put extra money in startups. Sometimes they're very good ideas, even outside universities, but also on universities, and they don't get the funding, and that's, as you said, the puzzle. Part of the puzzle is missing, and then you never get it complete.
100%. Yeah, and to add also, indeed, name it the puzzle, name it the pie, and part of the pie, nobody maybe wants the whole pie, but we need to build. You already said in your introduction, it's also about collaborations. So indeed, for an investor or for for the tax or whatever, it's all a part of the pie that people want, and that's all fine because that's how business works. Not everybody has the need for all the things. But to increase the value of our ecosystem also in the Netherlands, we need to at least understand that we need to get the whole pie. And from that perspective, we can give everybody a piece. And eventually also via the tax, also, again, we get more back as a government. But in the beginning, we need to build whole pie, build whole puzzle, build whole funnel, whatever you want to call it. But understand that is necessary to also come to the scale-ups, for instance. So we cannot just say, we need scale-ups. Yeah, but we need the whole pie. And if we have the whole pie, we have the scale-ups. And I think that, as said, I think here in the States, they're further ahead. But doesn't mean that we, I believe in the Netherlands, have the ingredients to build the whole thing.
And if you're talking about these collaborations, should we work together with big international companies, maybe from the US, as Dutch universities?
From my perspective, as with Amplify Now Global, what we do is we believe that you should start in the Netherlands or Europe, for this matter, get a little bit fat on the bones, and then scale further in the US. And the reason why I'm saying that is that the US is easier to scale. It's a large market, single currency, so it's a big market. So the chances that you are successful, which has another story maybe for another time, but once you're scaled here, it's easy to go back to Europe. I'm not saying that we all should move from the Netherlands or from Europe to the US, but start in the Netherlands, and you will get the hurdles as we just discussed about funding and so on that point, that would be, to answer your question, cooperating. If you start scaling in the US, you come across companies who are interested in your product, and from my experience with scale-ups and startups, is you have a goal. You go to the US, for example, and then your original goal is probably not what you thought about in the beginning, because along the way you learn new things, and you found out that these big companies have a completely different mindset on going to market than the Europeans. So that's basically, to answer the question, yes, work with larger companies. Although the technology is, if you work with scale-ups from Europe, with scale-ups in the US, you can sometimes just get more information, and what's in it for me comes back again.
Yeah, and we do work together already. Yeah, so as universities, also with these kind of people. But what I always find special. Today we're recording here at Applied Materials, not the smallest company in the world, 30,000 employees. just in presentation, they of course mentioned that they're the number one semiconductor in the world, and they right away joke like we probably as Dutchies disagree, because in Eindhoven we have another a big worldwide company that does these kind of things. And then while we're waiting to enter, we bump in a fellow Dutchie that seemed to be the vice president of this company. And we didn't know because we were invited by some alumni of our four technical universities. And then you're here, and then you notice already, also as Dutchies, of course, what we built in the ecosystem are not only Dutchies, but we are everywhere in the world. So probably the connections are easily to make and to help also with these kind of things. So we are worldwide connected. We need to use that more because it benefits. Because all of the ventures that we have, a lot of these solutions that they make cover worldwide problems. We always need to work from a worldwide perspective.
Absolutely, and I think it's also important to organize a follow-up. We're here now already with several startups. We bring them here to meet these American companies and meet alumni to get into the networks and get into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
What should be?
I want to add something to Mike's. Indeed, there are a lot of Dutch people, or Dutchies as you call them here, not even from the universities and alumni, but also just in general in Silicon Valley, we know a lot of Dutchies. Some are connected to other Dutchies, but we come across a lot of them. And I think that from the Netherlands perspective, if we utilize all these Netherlands people here, then it makes it easier to scale.
Yeah. Yeah, and also to take that back, Cindy, you and me are both also working in Twente, so we have a lot of chip tech. Then I'm listening in here with a few of our startups that we have from the 40U. Yeah. But I'm also eager to, after this session, jump back to these people, grab them by the neck and tell them like, hey, we have nice companies now joining, but there's a huge list of companies that are upcoming at our universities or currently at our universities that work on in semiconductors. So, and I think that's the eagerness that you see here right away, being connected. Sometimes in the Netherlands we can say, that's a nice opportunity. Let's see, or let's work on it. And then it takes weeks, or there are other things to follow up on. I have to say, after 2 weeks now in the US with CES and this group, I also noticed already the eagerness of right away diving into action rather than let's see if it happens or if we can make it work out.
Important thing is, as Cindy already brought up, is that following up. The attention span of an American in general is not as long as we Europeans have. So when you go back, send an email, recap what you discussed, and keep in touch and follow up, make a plan. Next step. So they know that you're serious, and then they will keep talking to you. If you don't follow up in a few weeks, then you're out of mind is out of sight, or out of sight is out of mind.
Well, I would say a good tip for all of the startups that are joining this mission. Marcel and Mike, we are closing our podcast for now. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on this topic. And we'll see you next time on the 40U podcast.
Thank you.